In the hills of central Italy, sometime around the year 480, a young man named Benedict was born into a noble Roman family. As he grew older, his parents sent him to Rome to study, a common path for someone of his status. The city he entered was far from glorious. Rome, once the heart of an empire, had crumbled into disorder. Morally and spiritually, it was in decay. Young Benedict, barely more than a teenager, saw his fellow students chasing pleasure and prestige. He realized that if he stayed, he too might be swallowed up by the world's distractions. So quietly and resolutely, Benedict walked away. He left behind his inheritance, his education, and his future in Rome. He journeyed into the wilderness, seeking not safety, but silence. He found his refuge in a remote cave near Subiaco, where he began a new life of solitude, fasting, and constant prayer. He had no desire to be known. He simply wanted to be with God. For 3 years, Benedict remained in that cave. He survived with the help of a nearby monk who would lower food to him by rope. But more than just surviving, Benedict was being transformed. In that hidden place, he learned to die to himself and to live entirely for Christ. It was in that silence that his soul was purified and his mission was prepared, not by his own plan, but by God's. Eventually, people discovered him. First a few, then more. Some were inspired by his holiness. Others, drawn to a deep longing for spiritual renewal. They came not merely to observe, but to follow. Benedict, now deeply rooted in humility and wisdom, began to accept them. He formed them into a community, a brotherhood, and so the first monastery under his guidance was born. But leading others was not without trial. One of the early groups of monks, resenting his discipline, even tried to poison him. Legend says that when Benedict blessed the poison cup, it shattered in his hands, and he knew that God had spared him. Undeterred, Benedict continued. He would go on to establish 12 monasteries near Subiaco, each a small community of men devoted to prayer, work, and holy living. As more men came to him, Benedict recognized the need for structure. Around the year 516, he composed what became known as the Rule of St. Benedict, a guide to monastic life rooted in moderation, humility, and balance. Unlike harsh or extreme spiritual moments, Benedict's rule was deeply human. It recognized the struggles of the soul and the dignity of daily life. Everything had its place: prayer, work, reading, silence, meals, rest. It was the rhythm of life centered on God. At the heart of the rule were 3 vows: obedience, stability, and conversion of life. The monks would promise to remain in the community, obey their abbot, and pursue continuous inner transformation. Prayer was the anchor of the day, with psalms chanted at regular hours, morning, midday, evening, and night. But work was just as important. Whether farming, copying manuscripts, or tending to the sick, every task was to be done as an offering to Christ, that in all things God may be glorified, Benedict wrote. Later in life, Benedict moved south and founded Monte Cassino, a monastery perched high on a hill between Rome and Naples. There, his vision of monastic life came fully to life. Monte Cassino became a beacon of spiritual and cultural light during the darkness of the early Middle Ages. It was not only a place of prayer, but of learning, healing, and hospitality. In a time when much of the world was in chaos, Benedict's monasteries preserved wisdom, welcomed strangers, and lived out the gospel in quiet strength. Benedict died around the year 547, standing in prayer in the oratory of Monte Cassino. His body, like his life, was offered to God in humble surrender. He was buried beside his twin sister, Saint Scholastica, who had founded a parallel community for women following his rule. Over the centuries, the rule of St. Benedict reshaped not only monasteries, but the entire spiritual landscape of Europe. It became the foundation of Western monasticism and influenced everything from education and agriculture to art and theology. Even today, Benedictine monks and nuns around the world continue to live by his rule, dedicating their lives through prayer, community, and labor. St. Benedict's life teaches us that true reform doesn't always begin with speeches or revolutions, but often in silence, in stillness, in a cave where a man seeks God alone. And from that hidden peace, a light can shine for generations.